all of you. I welcome you to the 5th JGLS webinar on sexual harassment of women in workplace by our distinguished alumna, Ms. Prachi Dutta. She is an advocate and has an active practice across all courts in Delhi. I'm Professor Shireen Moti, an alumna of Jindal Global University. Currently, I'm an assistant professor of law and director of alumni relations at Jindal Global University. The university was started in the year 2009 under the visionary leadership of our Chancellor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Raj Kumar. In a span of 10 years, Jindal Global University has been recognized as an institute of eminence by the Government of India, and Jindal Global Law School has been recognized as the #1 law school in India by QS World Rankings. Before I invite our speaker for today, I would like to introduce her briefly. Ms. Prachi Dutta graduated with a degree in History Honours from Hindu College, University of Delhi, and thereafter completed her LL.B. degree from Jindal Global Law School, Jindal Global University in the year 2019, where she received a special mention during the Dean's Dinner. She's an advocate and practices in all courts in New Delhi. A large part of her practice is focused on family law matters, which also includes civil and criminal law matters. She also sits on the Internal Complaints Committee, or ICC, of few companies and educational institutions. In addition, Prachi is an avid reader and writer and has published several critical articles. In today's webinar, which is very significant and holds contemporary relevance, Ms. Prachi Dutta aims at discussing the intricacies of the anti-sexual harassment laws and policies in India. She will take us through the rules, penalties, and compliance requirements as per the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act 2013, also commonly known as the PoSH Act. In addition, the composition and working of the Internal Complaints Committee, or ICC, will also be discussed in some detail. With this, I welcome Prachi with the introductory question that how and why she chose to study law and pursue a career in law. Welcome, Prachi.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me and having me over for this webinar. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Prachi.
Okay, hi. So I think the reason why I actually chose a career in law and decided to pursue law was simply because I think it was more of a process of elimination, and because there were I couldn't probably do science or maths, so there were a lot of other options that weren't open and available to me. So law was one of the options of good, lucrative, viable option that was available and was open to me. So I think it was a process of elimination and sort of something I just stumbled upon along the way. So I don't like, there was no definite moment, defining moment that I decided to practice law and become a lawyer, but it was just something that came up along the way.
So it seemed like something of good interest to you at that point. So once you decided to do law and took an admission at Jindal Global University, then you spent long years at Jindal campus. How was your experience of studying? How were your formal and informal interactions? And what was the impact of those interactions to the person that you became once you graduated?
So I actually quite enjoyed my time at Jindal. I did as many activities as I could. I participated in a whole lot of activities. I was in the SAC. I mooted a little bit. I researched. So I tried to develop as many skills as I could, and I tried to develop as many areas of interest as I can. And after doing work and reading up and research in various areas, I sort of finally narrowed down into this one particular area of family law and decided to sort of take it forward from here, because that was something that interested me all through. And it was very nice, like interacting with different kinds of people, professors. Some of them were really fantastic. It was great to interact with them because those interactions sort of shaped my interests and helped me make the choices that I made and bring me where I am today.
What was that one class or professor that really inspired you or made you want to feel and prepare yourself to become a lawyer one day?
Oh wow, okay. I mean, I don't think I can name one particular class or professor. It was just generally most of them had a large part to play in the whole thing. And I think in fact, all of them contributed something, a little something, even no matter how minute or insignificant, something or the other into making me who I am today in law.
That's very interesting to know. So, during law school, we undergo a number of internships, and from those internships, we figure out these broad categories of things that we may or may not be interested in. So, what was the defining moment, or whether there was a defining moment when you decided that you would want to become a litigator?
Yeah, so I actually all through law school and even towards the end, I did want to pursue and practice corporate law. I interned in a few corporate law firms, and I did have a good solid offer from one law firm. But in the end, I just decided that since my interest and my skill set, I mean, I just thought maybe I could be wrong, maybe I could be proved wrong in a few years' time. But I just thought that my skill sets are better suited for litigation. And I like interacting with people, I like moving about and anything out there. So I just thought it's better to try my luck with litigation. And then if it doesn't work out, I can always move into something else.
Did you intern with a lawyer while you were in law school?
Like once in first year. And that was a wonderful, like, I had so much fun. That was actually the best internship I've had. That was one of my favorite, and I think that internship also sort of contributed to strengthening my will to pursue litigation eventually.
That's interesting because, in a way, your internship experience and a positive internship experience shaped your decision and now you're living that reality. So internships are really important in how you experience and
For
whom you
sure.
intern with is very, very key to where you go in your career. That's nice to
Yeah.
know. And it was interesting for me to know that you decided to practice in the area of family law, which is not a popular choice amongst young lawyers. Young lawyers generally go for more commercial legal matters or look for a for a senior advocate and try to absorb as much as they can in the initial years. So how has the experience been of working on family law matters? And these are getting to the private spaces of people. So at such a young age, how do you handle that emotional turmoil that families go through? Because unlike other matters in family law matters, there is a sort of bond and relation between the litigating parties.
Right. So a lot of it is, yeah, of course, a lot of it is family law, but there are other stuff also. There's a lot of commercial stuff as well that I do. So it sort of is helping me get an overall understanding and assessment of law in general. So I do a lot of other stuff as well. But family law, the reason why I picked this practice because it's a mix of everything, which is very heavily reliant on family law, is because I mean, it's just family law is just something that's always interested me right now, and I thought it'll be a good way to start my career. Also, the thing with family law, luckily, is because it incorporates a lot. It's very CPC heavy, CRPC heavy, Act heavy, and a lot of other acts also. It incorporates in procedure and in practice, in daily practice. So it helps me understand other law as well in relation and with relation to family law. So it's all interconnected, and it's easier to understand the other law and understand other laws and other areas.
So
And as far
basically, you legislation when you are doing the family law matters, and that makes it interesting for you.
yes, yes.
Did you want to wrap it up with another point because you were speaking in between
No,
what
no,
I
that's
asked
okay.
you?
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. So it seems like fun. I mean, family law matters seem like a complex set of facts where a lot of laws are involved, and that is something that excites you as a lawyer. So,
Yeah.
what are you most looking ahead in your professional journey? Do you have things planned ahead? What are your hopes and dreams and aspirations when it comes to your own legal practice?
Right now, I haven't really planned anything. I'm just taking things as they come and just seeing how things pan out. Uh, I mean, like I'm just taking every day as it comes,
We lost you there for
and
about 30 seconds. Can you
just
repeat it? Your voice is
trying
breaking,
to
Prachi.
understand as much as I can,
Your
learn
voice is
as much as I can, and just sort of
okay.
take it forward
Now,
from there. I'm not really
yeah,
thinking too much about it.
all right. That's brilliant. Actually, go with the flow. Be with the
Is it better now? Better now?
yeah. Of course. we got the gist of what you were saying, that one has to go with the flow and one doesn't plan much ahead, and you're also very freshly out of law school,
Yeah.
so you have time in your hand to really develop your legal practice. Okay, so a note to the attendees, in this
Yeah,
presentation, we'll be
exactly.
getting to the presentation in a but we don't have a PPT today. What we're going to do is we're trying a conversation mode, unlike our earlier webinars, and wherein I'll be asking a set of questions to Prachi, and she'll be responding through her experience. And towards the end of the presentation, we'll be taking questions from the audience. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat box on your screen, and we will take up as many questions as possible towards the end of the presentation. So Prachi, let's get into the presentation now. So the first question and the most basic
Sure.
question that we have about the PoSH Act is that what were the events and circumstances that transpired which actually brought about the enactment of the PoSH Act? So really the drafting history and the reasons for us to have the PoSH Act, what were some of them? Please throw some light on them.
Right. So the PoSH Act is actually a product of something called the Vishaka Guidelines, which were formulated by the Supreme Court in 1997. The Vishaka Guidelines essentially emerged from this case called the Vishaka versus Union of India case, which in this case it was a class action suit by a bunch of NGO workers, wherein there was this one lady called Gunwari Devi who was she was a social worker, and during the course of her employment, as part of her job, she was trying to stop this child marriage from taking place. And the people who were conducting the child marriage got very angry with her because she was interfering in their customs, and they gang raped her. So as a result of it, she couldn't, of course, she was severely harmed during the course of her employment, during the time she was carrying out her job. So after that, she of course they went to the Rajasthan High Court, but there was no relief from the Rajasthan High Court. That's when these bunch of NGOs came to the Supreme Court, and the argument they took was events such as what the lady had to go through, and various other hazards to which working women are exposed to, and the depravity of sexual harassment can really degenerate a person, and such actions are violative of fundamental rights of gender equality. So essentially, if a woman is having a hostile work environment or has to face is sexually threatened or intimidated during her employment or at work, such such an environment is hampers her right to life and liberty and is violative of her freedom of right under Article 19(1)(g). That's how the courts looked at it, and that's how the courts interpreted uh, whatever happened, and that's how the court decided to come up with a guideline, because they realized that sexual harassment is something that does exist, and women do unfortunately have to face it all the time during the course of their employment and work, and it does threaten their being and threaten their right to equality and hampers their freedom to carry out trade. The court also, luckily the guidelines which they formulated were very international law heavy and focused on international conventions. So courts did use blinders. They realized India's obligations towards various conventions that they had signed or ratified, and decided to incorporate these conventions and the norms and the intention behind these conventions in the guidelines. So these conventions include the CEDAW, which is the Convention Against the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the Beijing Statement of Principles of the Independence of Judiciary, the Laosia region. So a lot of the guidelines in these conventions were also incorporated in the Vishakha guidelines. The guidelines, of course, weren't exhaustive. They just define the duty of the employer, what is sexual harassment, what is workplace preventive steps, disciplinary action, a complaint mechanism, and it was supposed to be in place till a proper legislation was formed. So it was supposed to be a temporary stopgap mechanism in the event, which is to fill up the lacuna of a legislation, and second, the legislation was going to come, the legislation would supersede these guidelines. However, the guideline unfortunately just kept continuing, and there was no legislation that came into place till 2013. So even after the Vishakha case, we had a case called Medha Kotwal Lele versus Union of India. In this, the court again realized that the directions of the Vishakha case are unfortunately have just become symbolic, and they're not being followed, and states are not following them. Supreme Court also noticed that most states observed that most states had not amended the Central Civil Services rules or made standing orders, and it directed the states to amend the Civil Services rule and formulate adequate number of complaint committees so that at every level, so that there are redressal mechanisms for women who are aggrieved. And in this case, they also sent out notification, in fact, to statutory body authorities such as the Bar Council of India, the State Bar Association, Medical Council of India, Indian Institute of Chartered Accountants, to also follow the guidelines. Again, there was another case for the SEMA nature state of Sikkim, which once again said the states have to publicize these guidelines and ensure that everybody knows about them. However, again, like these guidelines were just in place for a while, and it was only in 2013 that the act was formulated, that the act was published in the Gazette and officially enforced. So if you see from 1997 all the way to 2013, these guidelines were just there in place, which were not being followed or implemented strictly, even though there were 2 cases after that which directed state authorities to implement the guidelines. Still, they were just symbolic in nature. Even the legislative history of the act is also extremely prolonged. It was introduced first in 2007 in the Lok Sabha, and finally it was passed in the Rajya Sabha in 2013. After some amendments, after then it was referred to the Parliament Standing Committee, then it came back to the Lok Sabha, it was passed, then it came back to the Rajya Sabha. So it again, even in the Parliament, it had a very long history. It had a very long sort of long history and very prolonged duration it was in the Parliament as well. Also, it's important to note that this act came out in 2013. So the redressal mechanism for sexual harassment is always there in this act. The act provides it. However, a lot of this is something that not too many people are aware of. There is also a redressal mechanism, a redressal provision that women can go to under the IPC. So in the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013, they inserted certain new provisions. Section 354E was inserted, which is a penal provision of sexual harassment. So a person always has 2 options: either to go to the ICC and follow the redressal mechanism that is there in the PoSH Act, or to go and file a complaint under Section 354A. If you go under Section 354A IPC, then that will be a regular route. Like it will be regular criminal complaints, like a criminal complaint, an investigation, FIR, charge sheet, you go to court. So it will take the usual route as a criminal complaint. That option is there. Or a person can always opt for the option under the PoSH Act. So these various options, these 2 parallel options exist, and it doesn't mean that just because a person takes a remedy under one act or goes to one forum, that woman is barred from going to another forum or going to another using another remedy. Both these parallel remedies can coexist, and they're not a bar against one another. So this is just something people should be aware of, that there are 2 options that there are both these parallel options and they can coexist. So this is essentially the events that transpired that brought about the enactment of the act.
So 2 takeaways from what you said is that it took more than a decade for the judicial directions to be converted into a legislation, and the second thing is that you have these parallel remedies, which many of us will not be aware of when it comes to sexual harassment. So you under the IPC or PoSH Act. That was very comprehensively explained. Now moving on to, once knowing that by the act came being and having a certain idea of the drafting history of the PoSH Act, now what we would like to know is some of the important the salient features of the PoSH Act. Especially what I'm interested in knowing is the arbitration mediation provisions which have been inculcated within the act, and how does that play out in a sexual harassment complaint?
Right. So, the salient features of the act, of course. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, fine. In case the screen is frozen, you can't hear me, just let me know, then I will move around.
So everything is perfect.
Okay, right. Okay. So, one of the salient features, of course, let's start with the act defines what an aggrieved woman is. Now, because the act is a Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act 2013, it only applies to women who are aggrieved. So, if if there's a man who suffers sexual harassment or faces sexual harassment in workplace, this act of course doesn't apply to them, and it just goes without saying. So the act of course defines what an aggrieved person is. Then the act also, what very importantly, goes on to define who to define what exactly is sexual harassment. So under section 3 of the act, the definition of sexual harassment is given. However, it should be noted that this definition is not static. This definition is constantly evolving and is not only restricted to this. I also just want to add one more thing. This act is a work in progress. It is still being interpreted. It is still being read into meaning different things by various courts. Because something like this, there's so much gray area that exists, and there's no black. It's not black and white. There's no really hard and fast rule to determine what is what and what act constitutes as harassment. One can read. Okay, one can look at case laws and precedents that have evolved to essentially understand the working of this act and to understand the definition of this act. So, for example, the definition of sexual harassment, though it is given in the act, it's been expanded, the ambit has been increased by various courts and through by various judgments to actually understand, to just sort of give a more liberal interpretation to the definition. So, for example, there was this case called the Apparel Export Promotion Council versus A.K. Chopra, and out here the court held that the definition of sexual harassment it has to be enlarged and liberally read, and it does not necessarily mean that there has to be any physical contact. It can be any form of sex discrimination projected through unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, etc. So it's not just like restricted to some, like it can be something non-tangible as well. Then furthermore, after that, there were then also then there was another case called the case of Shanta Kumar versus Council of Scientific Research, which says that you like the behavior and the intent of the behavior has to be sexually determined and motivated, and even if it's in the nature of an altercation or a fight, if there is no underlying color of sexual motivation, it won't be fit for a case of sexual harassment. So this is essentially like the definition of sexual harassment, which is constantly being widened, and the ambit is constant, like it's been interpreted and it's being read to be quite liberal. It's been liberally interpreted. After that, another salient feature of the act is the definition of workplace. Now the workplace in the act includes, of course, I'll just quickly go over any department, organization, undertaking, any private organization, hospitals, sports institutes, place visited by the employee, dwelling house or a place, or the unorganized sector. Again, the definition of a workplace has also been enlarged and has been liberally interpreted. The courts have said that the workplace is not necessarily something that has to be physical. It can be anything. It can the definition of the workplace can be anything. So, this case of Saurabh Kumar Malik versus CAG, out here it was held that out here it was held that workplace you cannot does not necessarily mean an office. It doesn't have to be a physical area or physical office that's workplace. You can't have a narrow definition. Anything which has a proximity to work or a reasonable connection or a reasonable nexus with the workplace or with the work is sufficient enough to constitute as workplace. Then there was another case called Biplab Kumar Das versus IDBI Bank, wherein these two people, even though the physical office was in Guwahati, they went to Calcutta on work, and Calcutta was where the incident occurred. So just because the incident did not occur in the actual physical workplace, the fact that there was some proximity to the work because they had gone on a work trip and for work purposes, that is enough to constitute as workplace. So even the definition of workplace has been liberally read and enhanced, has been again interpreted liberally through various case laws. Then, of course, one of the most important, the case talks about the constitution of the ICC and LCC. So I just want to make the distinction between the internal complaints committee and the local committee and the local complaints committee. So the ICC or the internal complaints committee is something that has to be formed in every workplace, every organization with more than 10 employees, 10 or more employees has to have an ICC. However, there are a lot of cases where an ICC has not been formed, or if the complaint is against the employer, or if or there are less than 10 people, so there is no ICC. In that event, a person can always go to the local complaints committee, which is essentially in every district, an officer shall constitute in the district concerned a committee to be known as a local complaint committee to receive complaints of sexual harassment from establishments where the internal complaint committee has not been constituted. So essentially, the district officer has to designate one nodal officer and in every block and form a local complaints committee there, so that the local complaints committee will then act as the ICC. So this is so that a person is not an aggrieved woman has several redressal mechanisms and has a redressal mechanism to go to in the event that the ICC is not functioning or operational. Shireen, hello. Can you hear me? Because you're completely frozen. Okay. So I think I'll just continue. Then, yes, you are. Can you just pause a minute? Oh, shit. Yeah, sorry, I think I just. So you were asking about conciliation. Now the internal complaints committee. So one of the most significant steps of the internal complaints committee is to try and ensure that both the parties enter into conciliation and they are made to sit down and enter into a amicable settlement so that both the grievances of both the parties are addressed and a favorable outcome and a settlement is arrived at. So essentially, before anything else, the internal complaints committee should ensure that a conciliation or conciliatory proceedings have taken place before making inquiry and coming up with a verdict. I've been disconnected. Yeah, hi.
Hi. So I think, sorry to the attendees, there were some network issues and now we are back online. Meghna, can
Yeah.
you see us and hear us? Prachi and
Ma'am, you both are audible, but I'm unable to see any one of you.
okay.
You were there for
Can
1
you see me?
second. Okay. I can see
we.
Prachi.
Okay,
I can see Prachi.
Okay, Prachi, continue the answer.
right,
Okay,
now I can see you.
All right. Yes.
Okay, great.
Please continue, Prachi.
Okay, fine. So you were okay. I'll just start again. So you were talking about conciliation and entering into a mediation settlement. So one of the internal complaints committee or the local committee before initiating the inquiry that I'll talk about later must ensure that there are adequate steps that have been taken to mediate and settle the matter between the parties in a conciliatory manner. So the grievances and the issues of both the parties should be adequately heard, and then a conciliation or settlement should be entered into. In the event that this conciliation fails, then an inquiry will be initiated by them. It's just one has to note that there cannot be any monetary settlement. So the conciliation cannot there. It has to be completely amicable without any monetary settlement. So one party cannot pay the other party to keep quiet in this conciliation settlement. Another important feature of the Act is Section 9, which is essentially essentially a limitation period. What this act envisages is that within 3 months,
Prachi, we're unable to hear you. Could you check your microphone once?
hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we are able to hear you now.
Okay, fine. So there was this case called Jindal Call versus Union of India, which was a Delhi High Court judgment, which said that the court can relax this 3 month limitation period if they believe that there was that the person could not come due to some bona fide reason. The person could not come, the woman could not come forward to the of 3 more months. So in total, the statute read with this read with this case gives a period of 6 months to form the complaint. But again, this 3 month limitation, the 3 month limitation only or according to the statute for all practical purposes, the limitation is 3 months from the last date of the incident. So whenever was the last date of the incident, from that has to be 3 months. Then after that, then another important feature that I just quickly go over because I don't want to waste too much time is the ICC. No, that's the ICC has to come up with an inquiry report after they have conducted the proceedings. They have to come up with an inquiry report, and that inquiry report has to be forwarded to the employer so that the employer can thereafter take whatever necessary steps that the employer has to take with regard to the report and recommendation of the ICC. Another important feature is section 14, which is punishment for false or malicious cases. So, of course, unfortunately, what really happens is this can swing both ways. There are a lot of instances where somebody might file a false or a frivolous or a vengeful complaint. So, in the event that the ICC believes that the person has filed a false or frivolous a malicious complaint, not frivolous, a false or a malicious complaint, then the ICC can fine that person a fine of 50,000 rupees in the event that that they believe that the complaint has been false. In July 2019, the Delhi High Court in a case did impose a fine of 50,000 rupees against a person for initiating a false case and then directed the employer to initiate appropriate proceedings against the person for filing a false case. So it's important to have this provision just so that to deter people to not misuse this provision and to actually use the provision and be true to the letter of the spirit of this provision. Another important provision of this act is section 18, which talks about appeals. So whoever is aggrieved by the order of the ICC can always file an appeal within a period of 90 days of the recommendation of the verdict. Now, this provision is it's a little challenging and tricky because the provision says that the appeal has to be filed in appellate authority, which is either the court or tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the service rules applicable to the said person, or when no service rules exist, then without prejudice to provisions contained in any other law for the timing and force, the person aggrieved may prefer an appeal in such manner as may be prescribed. Now, what often happens is that there is no appellate authority. Appellate authority has not been created in the service rules. If one reads the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace 2013 rules, if that it says that the appellate authority has to be notified under Section 2, Clause A of the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. But if a person is, the problem arises when a person is not even governed under the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act. So in this case called Tanushree Chopra versus Ministry of Children and Women, the Delhi High Court directed the Ministry of Women and Children to set up a tribunal or an appellate authority in various districts to ensure that there is an appellate authority from ICC verdicts that a person can go to. But a lot of times, appellate authority has not been formed. So therefore, because of the lack of appellate authority, a lot of people end up filing writ petitions in court. So even if it is against a private person or private body, they will file a writ petition wherein they will impede the Ministry of Women, Ministry of Children and Women Development, because it is their job to form an appellate authority, and because of their negligence and they're not forming an appellate authority, the aggrieved person has been the aggrieved person does not have a redressal forum to go to, and therefore the only other option is to file a writ petition. So that's why Section 18 is a little important, because it has to, I think, be worked on quite a bit, worked on significantly more to ensure that there is an appellate authority in various places. Because it's easy to form an ICC, but it is not. But it's not very easy to form an appellate authority, because it has to be in accordance with the service rules that are provided. Or in the absence of the service rules, the Ministry of Family, the Ministry of Women and Child Development has to form the appellate authority. Then also one more salient feature with which I just quickly go over it is Section 26, which talks about non-compliance with the provisions of the Act. So if a person does not comply with the provisions of the Act, the fine of 50,000 rupees is attracted. So it is actually extremely important to comply with the provisions of the Act. So I think this is some of the important salient features of the PoSH Act, which I just sort of glossed over.
Thank you for taking us through these salient features and giving us such a broad overview of what the PoSH Act entails and what are the important mechanisms built within the PoSH Act to deal with complaints. Now, my follow-up question to what you really said is about how important is it to have a good ICC on board for companies or educational institutions, and what is the composition of these ICCs generally that is mandated by the Act?
So it's extremely important to have a sound and proper and good ICC, because several ICC reports and verdicts have been vitiated and quashed by various high courts, because the ICC has been wrongly constituted. So in the event that the ICC is improperly constituted, the verdict is also infirm and liable to be vitiated and set aside. So I'll just quickly first, before moving on to the case laws, I will just quickly go over the provision of the Act which talks about the ICC and the composition. The ICC, of course, one more thing that is one must note is that an ICC always has to have 50% of the members as women. So half the members, members have to be women. Otherwise, if that's not the case, then the ICC again is improperly constituted and liable. The verdict is liable to be vitiated. So the ICC has a presiding officer who shall be again a woman employed at a senior level at workplace from amongst the employees. Then not less than 2 members from amongst employees, preferably committed to the cause of women or who have knowledge in social work or have legal knowledge. 1 member from amongst non-governmental organizations or associations committed to the cause of women, or a person familiar with the issues related to sexual harassment. This clause C is something called the external member. It's very important to have an external member in the ICC. External member will ensure that any bias or any politics or any sort of any politics or any nastiness that exists within the organization, the external member can help negate that and can ensure that there is some objectivity in ensuring the proceedings are properly conducted, because the external member generally does not have a vested interest in the organization or the entire proceeding. So they can give a sort of a neutral and a non-biased outlook. Also, the members of the ICC will serve for a time period of 3 years from the date of the nomination, and after 3 years, then there will be a vacancy created, and after that, they have to appoint new members. So essentially, 3 years is the time that the person serves in the office. And if there is any contravention in these proceedings, like I said, that it can be the verdict is liable to be vitiated. This is for the ICC. Also, it's important to note that the ICC contains the powers of a regular civil code under the civil procedure code. So, things like summoning an ICC has the power to conduct all these following procedures to ensure that there is a fair and proper inquiry. So they do have similar powers, as they are vested with the powers of a civil code under the civil procedure code to ensure that a proper inquiry is conducted. So in terms of, like I said, in terms of examination, in terms of documents, in terms of evidence, they can carry out all those. They have the power to carry out all these procedures. Once there's a complaint that has been given under Section 9 to the ICC, the ICC has to form an inquiry and has to form an investigation and inquiry. Of course, the ICC has to give a proper opportunity for the accused or the respondent to be heard properly. So they have to give the respondent a fair chance to present his case, file a reply, present his case, present his version of the incident. Any evidence that he wants to give, they have to permit him to present that evidence forward, and the inquiry report has to be conducted within 90 days. So within 90 days, this entire investigation inquiry has to be conducted, and after that, a report has to be submitted within 10 days of the inquiry to the employer. And that implementation report has to be the report has to be implemented within a period of 60 days. Now, just one more thing. Okay, so now just quickly go over the case laws for this. Now, like in the beginning, I said that an external member is extremely important. So there was a case called Ruchika Singh Chhabra versus Air France, where the verdict of the ICC was set aside because the external member was not properly appointed and was not in consonance with the act. So therefore, the entire verdict was vitiated, and also also in this case, it gave extensive guidelines of how an external member has to be appointed. Then there was another case. Yeah. Then, in terms of the composition, there was a case called R. Hemlata versus State of Tamil Nadu, wherein it said that the ICC cannot only comprise of members of an administrative department and institution. So the members of the ICC have to be all-encompassing and have to have members who represent various departments. So in this case, it was an educational institution. And in an educational institution, of course, one has to have professors and faculty who form as the members of the ICC. In this case, there were only admin staff. So therefore, because there were no faculty members or anybody else or students who are absolutely crucial to an educational institution, it is an improperly constituted ICC, and the verdict was then set aside. Then the ICC, is important to note that the ICC cannot have less than 3 members. This was also held in the case of Sheetal Prasad Sharma versus State of Rajasthan, wherein it was held that if there are less than 3 members in the ICC, then the proceedings are vitiated. So, like, this is also important. So this is important as one has to have has to have 3 or more members. Otherwise, again, the proceeding is set aside. And also it's immaterial what the rank of the presiding officer is. The presiding officer can be somebody who is, let's say, junior to the person, to the respondent. So or to the accuser, the perpetrator. So it doesn't mean that the presiding officer, even though it has to be a senior person, doesn't mean it has to be the senior most person. It can be anybody who is senior, and the rank of the senior presiding officer is not decided vis-a-vis that of the perpetrator. Also, it's important to note that especially in educational institutions, the senior member cannot be the vice chancellor, or in a private organization, the head or the CEO, because that will sort of just negate the entire purpose of the ICC, because a person might feel intimidated or threatened to go to the ICC where the presiding officer is somebody so senior. So one can't have the vice chancellor or the boss, the CEO, as an external member. Or what often happens is, especially when people file writ petitions when women file writ petitions in the court with regard to the verdict of the ICC, one stance that they take and one argument they take is because of the bias of an ICC. Of course, the ICC does consist of members of the of the organization, so a real likelihood of bias can perhaps exist. But courts have again dealt with this issue of bias in ICCs, and they have held that there has to be something called a reasonable apprehension of bias or a real likelihood of bias. Only when there is a reasonable apprehension of bias, then will the verdict of the ICC be vitiated. So just because the presiding officer or a member of the ICC is colleagues or is on friendly terms with the perpetrator, with the accuser, the respondent, does not necessarily mean that the person is biased and the entire ICC is biased. There has to be a proper reasonable apprehension of bias. Also, it's important to know that principles of natural justice and proportionality have to be followed during the ICC proceedings. So, like any quasi-judicial body which follows the principles of natural justice as a research and admin law, the ICC also has to follow all these principles. In the case of Cebu versus Air India, the court again said that the principles of natural justice have to be followed in the ICC. So, for example, an offender cannot be a member of the perpetrator cannot be a member of the ICC because that just goes against the very principles of natural justice. In another case called Vidya Bhave versus Union of India, the Bombay High Court held that the doctrine of proportionality has to be used in administrating the ICC inquiries and has to ensure that the verdict is not completely disproportionate or severe, shockingly disproportionate to the offense. And in this case, also the court spoke about the whole Wednesbury principle and brought in admin law and said that principles of administrative law and Wednesbury principles have to be used and have to be read and understood in order to ensure that the ICC's inquiry and investigation is properly and thoroughly conducted so that there is no infirmity in the award itself. Essentially, these are some of the important features of an ICC, of an Internal Complaints Committee. Because there have not been too many case laws regarding a verdict of the Local Complaints Committee, there aren't extensive guidelines about a Local Complaints Committee as there is of an ICC. But however, that being said, the same rules, the same principles, the same jurisprudence of that of an ICC will be held for a Local Complaints Committee as well.
Okay. Prachi, that was wonderful that you took us through the difference between ICC and the Local Complaints Committee, the composition of the ICC, and how does the court react when the composition of the ICC is not up to par. Also, the fact that there has a lot of checks and balances and accountability that is looked into, and that is something that the framers of the PoSH Act really held dear to the core of the Act itself, and therefore certain heads of institutions or certain members of the community are not allowed to be members of the ICC. That is very interesting. I would just request some of the attendees to mute themselves because we can hear some disturbance. Thank you for that. Now, the follow-up question to what you've already said is that, of course, there is a static act and the court is interpreting that act. The definition of harassment as well as workplace is also changing with the change in society. But what are some of the important developments in the domain of preventing sexual harassment against women in workplaces and public places and courts that you would like to discuss with us today?
So I have spoken about several cases, but a few cases that probably I missed out. I just or didn't fit into the narrative that I weaved. I will just mention those cases. There was this one case called Abhilasha Dwivedi versus Department of Women and Child Development, NCT of Delhi, wherein it was held that allegations cannot be general in nature. So, and they have to be specifically pleaded. If the allegations are general, are not specific, are not even sexual in nature, and are not substantiated with proper evidence and with cogent evidence and documents, then the complaint is liable to be dismissed. And then in that case, even when the complaint is liable to be dismissed, the court also will not interfere in the findings of the ICC. So it's important to note that the complaint cannot be general and cannot be. In this case, it was against several people, and there was no specific instance that was pleaded. It was very ambiguous. It was very vague. So complaints have to be specific, and they should, whenever possible, whenever reasonably possible, have cogent evidence and documents to support and substantiate the allegation. Then there was another case called the case, which is quite a famous case again in this, which is quite a popularly cited case called Gaurav Jain versus Hindustan Latex Family Planning Promotion Trust and others. So in this case, it was held that if no evidence is put forth before the ICC, there is no evidence that can substantiate the scrutiny of and the ICC proceeding, then again the verdict is liable to be set aside, and the decision is liable to be set aside. Also, again in this case, it held that the principles of natural justice must be followed, and the courts should not interfere unless there is some severe infirmity in the fact that the principles of natural justice has not been followed, or the verdict is shockingly disproportionate. Only in such cases will the court then finally interfere in such matters. Then there was another case which is regarding courts. So should I talk about that now or should later on?
Up to you. You can talk about it right now in brief.
Okay, right. So there was this case called the case of Binu Tamata versus Delhi High Court of Delhi, where a few officers or a few lawyers in the Supreme Court, there was a newspaper article about a man, somebody filming women lawyers in chambers. So a few lawyers filed a case in the Supreme Court talking about how the courts are also not very safe, and courts in fact need to have cogent and strict guidelines in order to ensure that the PoSH Act and the Vishaka guidelines are being met. So in this case, the Supreme Court sent out recommendations to various high courts in order, and told them, and actually not recommendations, in fact sent out directions to various high courts so that they could formulate their own regulations and ensure to contain harassment of women, and to ensure that the regulations are implemented not only in the High Court but also in the District Court and Subordinate Court. Because the Supreme Court realized that sexual harassment is something that happens and is very prevalent, unfortunately, in courts. And in order to ensure that this menace is tackled, guidelines formulated by the Supreme Court to High Courts, and these guidelines have to be properly followed in full spirit by various state high courts and subordinate courts. So essentially, these are some of the important cases. When through the course of the next few minutes, if I can think of, when I discuss other things, that several other cases will probably come.
So this is wonderful. So the last set of questions that I have for you with regard to the PoSH Act itself is that, of course, you have this gamut of information and you have practiced in the courts and you've seen the act in working. So there are often limitations with certain acts. So what are some of the limitations you feel with the current anti-sexual harassment laws, and how do you propose to change them? So a few recommendations for our legislators or the judiciary, but how can we sort of improve the application of anti-sexual harassment laws in India?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that the act is a work in progress and has to be, like through various case laws, the various provisions of the act are being read down or being enlarged. I think some limitations is that this entire clause of the limitation period of 3 months since when the last incident, the statute of limitation of filing a complaint, I think that is a limitation that should be done away with and should not be and the limitation filing a complaint should be sufficiently relaxed, because there are a lot of circumstances that do not enable a person to come forward with their complaint. Of course, limitation shouldn't be extremely very large as either, but it should be something that gives a woman a reasonable time and opportunity to come forward with the complaint, and does not restrict, because having a time limit of 3 months just negates the entire purpose of the act by ensuring that by forcing somebody to come forward even when they're not ready. So when somebody is ready, the act in its spirit should account for the fact that somebody wants to come out and speak at a stage later than 3 months is the last date of the incident. Also, the provision for non-compliance which is just a fine of 50,000 rupees, should, I think, be increased to something that's a little harsher, as it should serve as a better deterrent to people and employers to comply with the act and ensure that the act is properly followed in spirit. And one more thing, one more problem, one more limitation, I think, is the limitation is regarding false cases. How there should be some more, there should be, I think, perhaps a little a heavier punishment rather than 50,000, maybe something a little more significant, because false cases can be a real menace and they can be extremely problematic. And somebody out of their ego or vengeance or whatever be the case, file a malicious or false complaint. In that case, a lot of people suffer unnecessarily. So to deter a person from filing a false complaint, the penalty should be slightly stricter, as again it should serve as a better and more severe deterrent. Once again, like, this is not really to do with the act, but or straight up clear-cut amendments, but also awareness and conversations about sexual harassment should take place. It should take place right from school. People should understand boundaries and what is correct, what is not correct. Propriety, impropriety is something that should be discussed at an early age and among school children, college children, so that later on problems don't arise. So more like just having a conversation in place.
Yes, that's very interesting to know, and those are some of the wonderful recommendations that have come out of your practical experience, and therefore are worthy of being considered not only by the legislators but also by the lobbies that work in this area. So now my question to you really is, we have so many questions that have come from the attendees, and I'm going to club some of those questions, and probably in the next half an hour we're able to deal with all of those questions, if not all, at least some of them. So the first question really is that, now we are in a contemporary sort of situation wherein we are in times of COVID-19 where everybody is working from home. So in this situation, how do you reimagine the anti-sexual harassment laws and policies, because they might not be as simple, but maybe because somebody gets overburdened with work because of their gender, because their manager doesn't like them, or things like that. Then how do you deal or reimagine the working of the anti-sexual harassment laws in a scenario where most of the working population is at home, working from home? Just your initial thoughts on that.
So even if somebody is working from home, they are still working. So the act still is in place. It's not like the act is suddenly the provisions of the act are not being implemented. They will still be in place because there are case laws which are said that workplace doesn't mean a physical office. Anything that has some correlation, some nexus with work and with the workplace is work. So if a person working from home is feeling overburdened, is feeling sexually threatened, is being harassed sexually, even though the person is sitting at home, the person can still go and file a complaint with the ICC, and an inquiry, it will be virtual perhaps, maybe it might not be a physical inquiry because everything has become practically virtual. A virtual inquiry will be conducted, and thereafter the regular proceedings will take place. But even though there's work from home, if somebody is feeling threatened or suffocated or feeling harassed or sexually violated or burdened, they can still very well go and file a complaint with the ICC, because the mechanism, the act will still hold forth.
That will remain the same. Wonderful to know that. The second set of questions that really come out, and that's something you touched upon in one of the answers as well, that there are a lot of false cases that come up when it comes to the sexual harassment complaints. But with the whole background of the Me Too movement and trial by media, what do you think? Should there be some guidelines for the media also when it comes to trying the perpetrator without sort of the judiciary taking over the matter, or what is the solution to that, to avoid a trial by media and also to give the benefit of doubt to the woman involved in the case?
Right. So to avoid a trial by media, like you said, it's very important to have proper strengthened ICC and complaint mechanisms and redressal mechanisms. Because what happens is a person goes online or shares their views on social media, because they have been failed by proper mechanisms, by redressal mechanisms. But if there is a proper strong ICC, if there is a strong redressal mechanism, a cogent one, a person can go to, a woman feels safe and comfortable to go to, then then she will not be compelled to go to social media. the the reason that's why it's very important to have a sound ICC, because at least a sound ICC will have a proper tangible outcome. By going to social media, there really isn't any tangible outcome, because A, there is no accountability for what you are posting. B, there is no redressal that you are going to get in terms of perpetrator. It's not like the perpetrator will or the accused will suffer or will have any sort of punishment. You're probably going to retain him socially. That's about it. But in the event that you want to have a tangible outcome, that you want to have a proper verdict, and you want to have something that you can actually something that will give you a sense of justice, then in that event, one should go to a proper redressal mechanism, and that is why it's extremely important to have a properly constituted ICC or an LCC and an appellate authority, in fact, so a person can go there and get a proper urgent outcome, instead of turning to social media, which again has a host of problems in terms of non-accountability and lack of impact on the perpetrator. Also, if a person goes to the ICC in a proper redressal mechanism, then the organization itself will be liable to ensure that there is some punitive measure or not, depending on the veracity of the claims after conducting a proper inquiry. So it is definitely a lot more thorough and a lot better for both the sides. But in the event that, of course, that's why people turn to social media, and that is why we have Me Too and trial by media, and just to avoid something like this, and to have that justice served to both the sides. Both the sides do not feel aggrieved and are content. It's important to have strong internal redressal mechanisms.
Also, some of our attendees would like to know your views on the Indian Me Too movement and our tendency to aid the West in terms of activism as well, because eventually we see nothing comes out of it and it fizzles out. So what are your views on the Indian Me Too movement, and do you think it does anything for gender justice?
I really don't want to comment on that, because it's just something that is just so personal to everybody. Everybody has their own opinion about it. So I would rather not comment on that. But let me understand it a lot more. Let me get a better understanding, and then probably I would answer that. But I don't have a good, clear, cogent understanding myself, so there's no point.
All right. But I would like your opinion on how difficult it is for a woman who sort of files an anti-sexual harassment complaint and then to re-enter the workforce, because she's often looked at as a troublemaker or a whistleblower or a person who's not strong enough for these board positions, or even somebody who is not working towards the well-being of the organization and puts herself first. So how difficult does it become for her to first file the complaint, go through the entire process, which often becomes adding insult to injury because she's asked those questions repeatedly. And we've seen that the courts have also not been very kind when it comes to matters which have demanded certain gender sensitivity, but that is something that the courts have not really paid heed to. So how do you think, how difficult is it for a woman to first step up, go through the entire process, and then re-enter the workforce? Is it a virtual end to her career once she files a complaint, or is that too harsh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll go as far as saying it's going to be a virtual end to her career. I don't think it's that harsh either. But yes, unfortunately, there is that whole stigma that women would unfortunately face. And of course, that is something that inherently and unfortunately does exist. I don't think it'll be as harsh as the end of a career or something like that. But of course, it's going to be really problematic and quite difficult. Um, it will be quite difficult, quite problematic for the person to get back. But then again, that's just something that's a systemic change with, I think, conversations, dialogue that are carried out right from a young age. This whole stigma should disappear over time, and should, even if it doesn't, like, there should be efforts to ensure that the stigma disappears over time.
Okay, I'm getting a few more questions for you. So one of our attendees would like to know that so this is again the Me Too campaign, but a slightly different question to put you at ease. The Me Too campaign resulted in forced resignation of many employees, but the ICC have jurisdiction to entertain complaints against these employees who were forced to resign in consequence to the actions and who are not presently part of the company. So basically, the consequential resignation of so many of the employees because of allegations. How does the ICC sort of intervene in these matters?
No, so the question is the consequential resignation or how? I don't understand the question.
Without an ICC inquiry, also people have been forced to resign just based on the allegations and are now
Oh, without an
outside.
ICC inquiry. Yeah, that's what, of
So,
course, that happens, and that is yes, that is unfortunate. That is why it is important to have a cogent ICC to ensure that, to ensure that a person does not unnecessarily suffer because of something that's put on social media. That being said, a person resigning because of a post on social media and the ICC not doing anything about it, there's no correlation between the two, because it's not like somebody went to the ICC and filed a complaint and the ICC, through due process and proper inquiry, found the person guilty. That person resigned on their own because of the post. So the ICC in this case really cannot be held responsible, because nobody went to the ICC. The aggrieved person did not go to the ICC and file a complaint. The ICC person simply put it up on social media, and based on that, the person resigned. It's really not the ICC's fault, because I mean the ICC didn't have the chance or the opportunity to get involved in the entire matter.
okay. Another question that has come out is about collection of evidence and the ICC maintaining its integrity, because many a times
Yeah.
we feel that the ICC itself gets very politicized, and that has an impact on the outcome. So, what is the inbuilt mechanism within the Act? Does it exist or does not for ensuring the integrity and the accountability with the ICC members themselves?
So all proceedings, any content, anything of the complaint and the inquiry, the ICC is strictly confidential. It cannot be made public. It has to only be within the members of the ICC, and the copy of the complaint and the final verdict can only be given, of course, to the employer, but also only to the two parties and the members of the ICC. So these proceedings are extremely confidential, and the Act itself says, so under Section 16, it says that the provisions of and the provision the proceedings of the Act and various other evidence and documents that are submitted during the course of the inquiry are confidential in nature. And if there is a breach of this confidentiality, then there's a fine of 50,000 rupees imposed on the organization in the event that there is a breach and this confidential material gets leaked.
Okay, so another question that has come up is that what would your advice as a lawyer be to a person who is currently facing a situation where she's feeling harassed in a workplace? What are the do's and don'ts that she should be doing to support her case, and whether she should go ahead and file that complaint with the ICC? So, certain tips for a woman stuck in a situation. When should she file that complaint? Should she wait for the right moment, or is there a right moment?
Yeah,
And what are the
I
things to
mean,
be prepared for? Yes, Prachi, over to you. We can't hear you any longer. Can you unmute yourself?
I think I just lost you there.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah, I think for a minute I just lost you there. So if she is feeling aggrieved, yes, most definitely she should file a complaint at the earliest. She should be within the 3 month time period of since the last incident occurred. Again, like courts have said that 3 more months can be granted in the event that she could not have filed her complaint earlier. She should most definitely file a complaint with the ICC, and if she is feeling aggrieved or unhappy.
Okay. And are there certain things she can do to help her case with the ICC, as opposed to say text messages or emails? or collecting evidence on her own before she goes to the ICC, because then the perpetrator might get alerted once the complaint is made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I kind of lost you there.
My question really
I
is
didn't
that
understand.
can a potential complainant in terms of the woman, can she do something to better her case in front of the ICC? For example, collecting SMS messages, emails,
Yeah,
certain
yeah, of
kind of.
course. She should collect as many evidence, as much evidence, documentation, emails, anything that forms cogent evidence, because that will help strengthen her case. And then the court will, I mean, not the court, the ICC, and subsequently if she decides to go to the court, there should be enough material to
And there is, of course, we know that all of these legislation and law in particular, because this can be considered as a labor law, right, does not cover the informal sector, which is a major chunk of our working population. So, what is protection for
doesn't
them?
cover who?
The
Doesn't cover
informal,
who?
informal sector.
Right.
So that is a
Yeah.
big limitation of this act. Would you agree with that? Because that's a question of one of our attendees.
Yeah, but luckily we have, I mean, this act provides something called a local complaints committee. So in the event there is no ICC, the person can always go to the local complaints committee, which is formed in the district. So every district has to have a local complaints committee. So the person is, let's say, a domestic worker, or works in a temple, or is a garbage collector for a municipality, or is a sweeper, a sanitation worker. She can always go to local complaints committee and file a complaint there. So even if she belongs to the unorganized sector and there is no ICC that is there is always a local complaints committee that she can go to, and then the local complaints committee will take cognizance of the complaint and follow the same inquiry as the ICC.
Yes, and there's a question regarding the out of court settlement of these cases, which we've already dealt with, which you've already dealt with in your answers in terms of conciliation, because the option to the complainant is given to enter into a conciliation proceeding with the said perpetrator. So that is one of the questions that was asked. Finally, there are two sets of questions that I want to ask you from the perspective of prospective law students as well as current law students. First question is regards to what is the criteria that law students, prospective law students should come up with while choosing a law school, and why do you think it is important to go to the right law school and get the right kind of research and academic training?
I mean, I think everybody has their own criteria of picking a college and picking a law school. So whatever criteria works best and suits other people, they should follow that criteria and pick a law school based on their own criteria and understanding of what would be a quality education for them.
For example, if somebody asks me this, I always say look at the faculty, look at the alumni, and look at the course curriculum. Those would be the three top things that I would ask a
Okay.
prospective law student to look at. And of course, all of these three would reflect in some sort of ranking. It could be the QS rankings, it could be Careers 3, it could be the Times ranking. So within amongst all of these three things, what is the most you would emphasize on? Is it the faculty, the coursework, or the how the alumni are doing in terms of placements? What is it
I
that
think
you would
I
emphasize
think the alumni is fairly immaterial. It really doesn't matter what the alumni does, because alumni, what the alumni does later on in life really doesn't contribute too much to how the law school will function, right? That is what, like,
But I
the
tend to disagree, because I feel that those are the formative years, because when you're entering law school, at least for the 5 years, you're an 18, 19-year-old and you come out as a 23-year-old. But the 3 years also, you're fairly a young professional. So I think it does shape how you spend those 3 or 5 years of your life.
perhaps, but I think the faculty and the academic coursework is what matters more. And I think prospective law students should in fact check those out. Are there any
Okay,
questions?
that's
Because I have one more. If there are no more questions, I have some points to add, which I forgot, which
one.
I don't think came up.
Okay, go ahead with the points that you would like to add, and then I would end with a final question. Yes.
Okay, sure. Also, I just wanted to basically add that this act also applies to educational institutions such as schools and colleges. Now, schools, of course, because the students are below the age of 18 years old, the act does not apply to students. The PoSH Act will apply to them. So, provision of the PoSH Act will apply to them. However, for the faculty, for the teachers, support staff, the admin staff, the act does apply, and there was a notification by the government of NCT Delhi dated 24/7/2014, which directed even private unaided schools, recognized schools in Delhi, to form an ICC. So schools are not an exception to this act. So even schools, creche, nursery, play school, all of them come under the provision of the act. Also, under the UGC notification of 2nd May 2016 for the University Grants Commission Preventive Prohibition and Redressal Sexual Harassment of Women, Employees and Students in Higher Education Regulations 2015, to me it's a very long name, they have mandated that an ICC has to be formed in every university, private, public, aided, unaided, has to be formed, and if there is non-compliance of the regulations and of the act itself, then they are liable to derecognition. They're liable to not be given any grant or to the service. Okay. Now can you hear me? So I just basically just want to touch upon the fact that this act is also applicable to educational institutions as well, and it's not that the educational institutions are immune from this act. And even the UGC notification and guidelines have to be read in consonance with the act. The provision of the act and the guidelines have to be read together. And all universities of India, all HEIS, higher education institutions across India, have to form ICC and have to follow the proper procedure of this act. And in fact, the regulation is slightly different because they have separate provision, and if the perpetrator is a student or if the perpetrator is an employee, if either the perpetrator is a student, the punishment is different from the other perpetrator. But that again is which is actually good in a way, because then this guideline strictly applies to university students and helps university students to get whatever redressal mechanism that they have to get. So I just wanted to add that little part.
That's a wonderful addition to the discussion thus far. So the last question that I really want to ask you before we end the webinar for today is that if a law student wants to prepare for a career in litigation, currently in law school, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, any of the years, what is it that the student should really focus on, and how does one get to your position wherein you're now actively arguing cases, doing such amazing research, which we could see today, and articulating the law in such simple layman terms. So how do you really, and what do you suggest these students to do?
I think they should just essentially read up as much as possible, understand the law, just essentially just spend as much time reading, because reading is what really helps as much as reading. And of course, I think people should write. You should write also as much as you can. So these prospective students, I should spend time reading, absorbing vast amounts of information, and writing. Try to get publications, just because it helps streamline and articulate one's thoughts into paper and get a better understanding of various topics.
And how important do you think is networking for a lawyer? And where does networking begin? Because I feel networking begins right at law school. Yeah.
I mean, I guess as important as it is in any other profession, but I think at the end of the day, it's a work that really speaks for itself rather than who you know and how many people you know.
So your knowledge of law is key in how you deliver and handle clients. Lastly, anything that you have learned in terms of client management, which is something which we do not really get to experience in law school, because we're dealing with such different temperaments, and the clients are always behind you for the work, but they are behind you. So how do you deal with them?
I mean, you have to understand where they're also coming from. They're also in a difficult position. draw some boundaries with them, but be nice to them, listen to them, be firm, tell them to listen to you when they're going over their head or when they're going overboard, and just like interact and treat them as you would treat anybody else in a firm and professional manner, as you would treat not anybody as any other professional associate.
Lastly, Prachi, I would like you to give some closing comments. After that, I will speak for a minute or two, and then we'll close the webinar for today.
I don't really have any closing comments to give, but if there are any other questions, perhaps like 1 or 2 questions, if we have time, I could answer those.
We are really now at the end of the time that we have had today. So what I would like to really tell you is that thank you so very much for taking out your time today. And we at Jindal Global University are very proud of your achievements and what all you have been doing. You have become a valuable member of the legal fraternity in India, and as we have seen today, that you have really dedicated your time and your efforts towards understanding the law and articulating in a way that is accessible to lawyers as well as non-lawyers, which is pretty much the training that one gets at law school. What we would like you to do is to come and keep sharing your knowledge at the law school in terms of your practical experience in the law, and supplementing it with theoretical knowledge, which is of utmost importance not only to aspirational law students but also for current law students, because they get a glimpse of the real world and how law works in reality. So keep coming back, organizing these webinars, speaking to the students, and
thank you for having me.
We're certainly proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you
to
so
the
much for
attendees
having
for being so patient, and
yes,
I'm
thank
sure
you to
that
whoever attended it.
yes, and I'm sure that Prachi has really kept you engaged towards this very interesting topic, which is supposed to remain interesting for eons to come because of the fact that women have recently become a part of the workforce in great numbers, and not only the men but also the women are grappling with certain issues at the workplace, which will become visible to you once you become a part of the working force. So thank you so much for introducing us to such an important piece of legislation and giving us this knowledge which we'll carry forward. And thank you so much and have a nice evening. The webinar is
Thank
ended.
you. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.